musicians particularly have all got a story to tell, and they all have their demons, and that's part of why you create to try and absolve those demons. It's part of the process, I think, and I don't think you'd get a good song written if you were a saint. It just wouldn't happen.
Welcome to the Cheers and Strings podcast, the show where I talk to musicians about what's happening within the local music scene, as well as listening to some of their original music. So today my guest is Chris Robson, who's a musician from Essex. He has a really good in-depth knowledge of the local music scene, and he puts on a number of different events around the area. So let's dive into it. So Chris, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing? Okay?
Yeah, I'm good actually. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we recorded some of your music earlier. Some great stuff. Really enjoyed that. We'll give some of that a listen in just a bit. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, I just want you to take me back to when you first started out in music and what first inspired you to get into it.
Yeah, so it was a very long time ago, obviously, and I first started, my first sort of listening experience with music was listening to probably the records that my sisters used to play. Things like Rolling Stones, David Bowie, that sort of stuff. So I was immediately influenced, I suppose, by some of the best singer-songwriters there's ever been.
Yeah.
And I picked up a guitar. I think I got an electric guitar when I was about 16, which for some is a bit late, but and I got electric guitar, the Beatles songbook, and started learning Beatles songs like a lot of people did. I think it was about, must have been about 18, 19 when I started to write my own songs. I got sort of fed up with playing other people's songs all the time, and so I ventured into writing my own songs, putting 3 chords together, and I just found I really enjoyed it. And I wrote many songs just playing to my family or the odd friend who I didn't worry about looking stupid in front of.
Yeah.
And then it took me a very long time before I ever played live. So I think I first played live when I was about 40. So
really? Wow.
a very long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happened in that space.
Yeah.
There was, marriage, children, all that sort of stuff. So there was a big period of time where music took a back step, I suppose. But I eventually plucked up the courage to go to an open mic that a friend of mine was running. I was persuaded that I should be letting other people hear my songs. So I did that, and that was in Southend, a little place called Monty's Bar at the time. And I went there and I played a few of my songs. Nobody ran away and nobody laughed. And from that point on, I was kind of hooked, and I went to every open mic I could for years.
Yeah.
And that's really how it started.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what do you think that was outside of getting married and all the things that get in the way? What do you think that was preventing you from getting out there and doing it?
I've always been a very anxious person. I was an extremely shy child, and I don't think they call it shy anymore. They call it anxiety.
Yeah.
But same sort of thing. And I really struggled. I never wanted to stick my head above the parapet. I never wanted to be the centre of attention. The only time I played my songs prior to those was at Christmas. The family used to make me come and play songs, and everyone sang, songs at Christmas in a drunken stupor. But I think it got to the point where I thought I had to do it, and the guy who was running the open mic I'd known for many years, so it was a relatively safe environment. I mean, to anyone who's at that point at the moment, I would say just do it, because you have nothing to lose, and people really do like listening to music.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't going to open mics to make fun of people.
No.
You know, it's definitely the way to start, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so easy to build things up in your head, isn't it? And just get to that point where you just don't want to do it. But yeah, jumping in and is good advice, because as you say, you've got nothing to lose. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I was terrified. You know, for years I was terrified playing live.
Yeah.
But then those nerves gradually subside, and now I rarely get nervous. I might get just a little bit, you know, excited, nervous, but not the same sort of anxiety.
So, in regards to your gigs now, what sort of thing do you do? What sort of venues? And is there any venues that specifically stick out in terms of ones that you would recommend people play?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend people just to play as much as you can. Yeah. And the beauty, just going back to the open mics for a second, the beauty of keeping going to the open mic circuit is that's where you build your network of people who are likely to ask you to come and play gigs. So my sort of motto is, the more you play, the more you play. And so I gradually started playing. A lot of the open mics had sort of guest nights, or once a year they would have the mini festivals, and I gradually started getting guest spots and playing at the all-day things. Then I just started applying to everything that I saw. If I saw, there's so-and-so festival happening, or there's so-and-so event happening at a school or at a park, or I would just put my name forward and try and build that reputation. So I played the Lee Folk Festival for many years, and from just playing small slots to playing the main stages, at the Peterboat stage, and latterly the Library Garden stage with my band, and those were really, really good gigs, because there's always a good crowd, everyone's up for it, you know. And more recently I've started branching out a little bit, been down to the Dart Music Festival in Dartmouth for the last couple of years. A very good friend of mine called Ian Keenan organises a lot of local musicians and helps us get gigs. And he struck up a relationship with the people that run the Dart Music Festival. Mm-hmm. So there's a group of us have been going down there the last couple of years and playing that. And it's so nice to play somewhere out of your local area. I mean, I've played myself to death in Southend, really. I think people are fed up of coming out to see me. So it's really good to get out. And that's, if I was offering any more advice, I would say try and just go a little bit out of your area and play to people that haven't heard you, because that's my favourite gigs, are playing to people who've never heard me before. Yeah.
So is it always originals that you play, or do you ever do any covers?
No, I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that sticks to originals. That's what I want to do. It's what I like doing. I'm not a full-time musician for money, for work, so I have the luxury of being able to play what I want when I want. That means sometimes I've had to play to not many people, and sometimes it's a lot harder to get gigs because a lot of venues want a covers band, which is understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you often go to see other musicians live?
Yeah, I mean, I spend my life going to little gigs here and there. I organise a lot of local gigs. I've got a couple of regular events that I organise. One's called Battle Lines. It's a songwriting competition, and I've got another one called the Pin Drop Sessions, which is a completely acoustic music night, so no amps, no mics, no nothing. That's been on hold for a few months now, but it is coming back. I can announce that here. That'll be back in December. We've got a very special Pin Drop Sessions at the Dixon Studio in Southend in December, so watch out for that. Okay. But yeah, so I see lots of local musicians and I try to support original music wherever I can,
Yeah.
and try to provide places where original musicians can come and play.
All right, that's brilliant. What are some of the artists that you are influenced by then, would you say? Listening to your music then, is Dylan one of your
Yeah, I mean,
people? Because definitely one of them songs sounded very
yeah.
Dylan inspired.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Bob Dylan was a huge songwriting hero of mine, and probably where it all stemmed from. I'd say the big three for me in my early stages were Bob Dylan, David Bowie, and probably Paul Simon, and all of them hugely influential singer-songwriters with vast back catalogues of music. And for me, it's more about the words than the music.
Yeah.
Although I think a lot of Bowie, the music is phenomenal as well. But yeah, I want to hear what people are saying. I want to hear a story or something new or something that sparks my imagination.
Yeah, because you've definitely got that storytelling kind of vibe to your music, in the same way as say that Dylan does. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'll take that as a comparison to Dylan. Thank you.
Yeah. As I said before, we recorded some of your music earlier. What was the first one that you wanted to listen to?
The first song is probably one of my more recent songs, if not the last song I wrote, and it's called The Accountant, which is an odd name for a song, I know. And it's kind of autobiographical, even though I'm not an accountant. But it's about a guy who's an accountant who works in an office every day. He hates his job, and he dreams of running away and joining the circus. And he's got this whole fantasy going on in his head. And basically it's the story of his life and how that ends up working out for him.
All right. Sounds interesting, yeah. All right, well, let's give it a listen, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, this song is called The Accountant. He always takes the train and reads the paper every morning. He's tired from the night before. You'll always see him yawning through his lunch at the cafe at the corner of the street. He'll be dressed like an accountant from his head down to his feet. He stares out the window at the perfect passers-by. There's very few that notice there's a glint within his eye. It's the spark of a life he hopes to live before he dies, taking chances like an acrobat when through the air he flies, reaching out for the hand of one he trusts just like a brother, tempting fate when he swings from one trapeze into another. He lands in the safety net when things don't turn out right, all the things he dreams of when he lays asleep at night. And he shouts, but no one hears him, so no one ever comes. He hears the voices whispering, but listening leaves him numb. He wants to test the waters, but he's frightened he can't swim. He needs someone to push him in. On his way back to the office, he decides to clear his mind. Focus on the present, take it one step at a time. But soon his mind is wandering, he's staring at his neighbor, trying to find a new scenario where he could see her later. But suddenly he realizes she has caught his eye. Oh, he blushes like a berry, there's some things you cannot hide. And he shouts, but no one hears him, so no one ever comes. He hears the voices whispering, but listening leaves him numb. He wants to test the waters, but he's frightened he can't swim. He needs someone to push him in. And living on his own, he bides his time, letting everything just pass him by. Oh, he's ticking like a time bomb till something makes him step across the line. And kicking up his desk, he makes a beeline for the door. He fills his lungs with air, he tilts his head back, starts to roar. I've had enough of this, he says, I cannot fight that feeling. And clenching both his hands, he pumps his fists up to the ceiling. Trying not to cry as everybody stops and stares. He waits for the trapeze like in his dreams, but it's not there. And he shouts, but no one hears him, so no one ever comes. He hears the voices whispering, but listening leaves him numb. He shouts, but no one hears him. He shouts, but no one hears him. He needs someone to push him in.
Okay, brilliant. When it comes to songwriting, how do you generally approach that? Is it something that you would say comes naturally, or is it something that you've struggled with in certain periods?
Yeah, I have phases of songwriting. My biggest problem is time, just finding the time to do it and finding the time to get my mind into the right space to do it. But the way that my songwriting normally goes is I keep notebooks and things of things to jot down and things that just spark my interest lyrically. But when it comes down to the songwriting, I usually just pick up my guitar, start playing through various chord progressions or just messing around, and something will pop up, a lyric will come along that fits, or I'll just be humming along, and I generally would get to the point where I've got a verse or a verse and a chorus done, and I will get to that point, and if it's really going well, the whole song will just come out. The best songs are the ones that just come. I don't know where they come from. They come from somewhere, but sort of come through you rather than you're actually thinking of them yourself. If not, I will try and get to the point where I've got a verse and a chorus. If I have choruses, a lot of my songs don't have choruses,
right?
And I'll just leave it there. So I've got a melody, I've got an idea of a subject, and then I'll ruminate on that for a while. Or sometimes they just get left for months. I have a little dictaphone that I always have when I'm recording, and I always record it on there so I remember, because my memory is terrible. It's got too many songs in it to remember new songs. That's pretty much the process. I very rarely write lyrics first.
Right.
It normally comes together as a whole.
Yeah, because it's interesting because so many different musicians have different approaches to songwriting. Some people write lyrics first, some people write the music first. So it's just always interesting to see what your starting point is in that regard.
I've never understood how people write lyrics first.
No, nor have I.
And then do the music. But hey, each to their own.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What would you say your ultimate goal is in terms of your music and putting it out there? Like, is it for like personal satisfaction, enjoyment, or putting something out there for someone else to enjoy?
Well, my ultimate goal is for as many people as possible to listen to my music, for me to make loads of money and live in a mansion somewhere. But my realistic goals are just to be able to play my music for as long as I can, and to play to as many people as I can, and to try and as long as I'm still getting good feedback every now and again from someone. I think I've said before that it only, when you're playing a gig, it only takes one person to come up to you at the end of a gig and say, I really enjoyed that, and that makes the gig for me. And I'll continue to do it until either I'm fed up with it or no one's turning up.
Yeah.
It's just what I do. It's kind of entrenched in me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to recording music, do you do a lot of recording?
I've always struggled with finding the money to do recording, because it's not a cheap hobby. And so I've tended to sort of do it half and half. I've done the odd EP, completely in a studio with an engineer.
Yeah.
Usually I've got a few friends who do it. But I do like to do as much as I can at home. And if I can do it all by myself, and I've been learning more and more using software and virtual instruments, virtual drums, for example. There's some really good stuff out there that's almost I don't know if authentic is the word. I think if you weren't a drummer, you'd never know.
No.
And I spend a lot of time with drums trying to make sure that I'm not playing something that would require a four-armed drummer or someone with 3 feet or something.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
So I think the last 3 or 4 singles I've put out have been entirely myself, just using virtual instruments and live guitar and vocals, and I really enjoy that process. But again, it's finding the time. You know, I'm a very busy man.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is incredible what you can do today. You know,
It's
like
amazing.
it's just changed so much in the last 10, 20 years. You know, what's available and what you can do at home. So yeah, it's great. I mean, I love just working with, as you say, virtual stuff, and it, as you say, you do have to watch yourself sometimes, make sure it's possible to do in a live environment. But it's
if that's what you're doing. But if it's only ever going to be recorded, you can now do stuff that's impossible.
Yeah, exactly,
which is great as well, and lots of people are, and why not? And you can get really good production at the end of it as well. That it's good enough for radio, good enough for anything really.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that your music style has changed much over the years?
The big change for me, I think, as a solo artist, I don't think it's changed that much. I think my storytelling has probably evolved, so that I now recognise a good song more than when I first started out and was just writing everything.
Yeah.
I now tend to, sounds daft, but I tend to only write the good songs, so I can recognise when I'm putting a song together that if it's that's rubbish, or that's never going to work, or it's not interesting, it's not. That comes with experience.
Yeah.
But the big change for me was when I put a band together, and then I started writing specifically for the band, which is a very different thing because it's a lot more upbeat, and it's, you know, you're there to entertain a lot more than if you were just a solo artist.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of vibe you get, and that's really interesting, and I really enjoy playing with the band now, and I really enjoy writing for the band.
What style would you say your music is?
I don't really know. It's not folk music, but it's kind of got its roots in folk music and singer-songwriter. So I sort of urban folk, urban alternative folk. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. So going back to your band then, what instruments are in the band?
We're just a 3-piece, so just drums, bass, me, guitar, vocals. We've got the wonderful Nicola Collis on drums. She's someone who you should definitely get for this podcast.
Really, yeah.
Actually.
Well, she does her own stuff,
Yeah. She's quite a renowned local artist.
Yeah, okay.
She can play everything. She's a great songwriter and a good singer. But yeah, she plays the drums and does backing vocals. And then I've got Alex Adlington, who is a brilliant bass player, and he does backing vocals as well. He's in a band in his own right called Walking Coma, which is a very different type of band to ours. It's a really heavy, sort of growly kind of band, and he's the lead singer with them. But the most important thing about the people in my band is we all get on really well. We're good friends, and it works. We just have fun, and we're at the point where we've rehearsed enough now that we're just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Although I am supposed to, in the next 3 months, be writing lots more songs, so that next year we have different ones to play, but we'll see.
Okay, great. So when it comes to your songwriting, do you generally write about personal experiences, or are they somewhat imagined concepts, should I say?
I would say mostly there's a part of me in almost every song I write. Up until probably the last 4 or 5 years, I would say 90% of my songs were personal, either about me or my experiences or my thoughts on the world. But then I've started writing more songs just from things I see or things that I find interesting, that aren't necessarily about me at all. I've got some very bizarre songs in our set list. I've got a song about a cow, about a farmer who likes his cow too much.
And you've never been a farmer, no?
I've never been a farmer. I've got a song called The Box of Bees, which was inspired by a Channel 5 documentary about people who collect things. As you heard, I've got a song about the accountant. Now, that is inspired by me, but I didn't want to make it about me, so you paint a new scenario to tell the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do find that interesting.
So when it comes to those more personal songs, do you ever feel unsure whether to put something out there? If it's too personal, does it ever feel a bit uncomfortable to put a song out there? Because I know you said before that you're sometimes a bit nervous when it comes to, or you were, when it comes to live performances. Do you feel the same when it comes to putting original music out? No,
not anymore. I think it took a while to get to that point, but I mean, I've had various mental health problems. I suffer with anxiety and depression quite a bit, and a lot of that I've covered in my music, my solo stuff more. But I found it really helped, and there's one song I did called The Shadow, which is basically all about my mental health journey. And when I put that out, the feedback I got from that was brilliant, and people were really interested and wanted to talk about it, which, as we all know, is what we should be doing about mental health issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find it therapeutic almost.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a common theme with different musicians that I've been speaking with.
Oh yeah.
Because I think music and just generally being creative, I think it helps a lot of people.
Yeah, we're all messed up. All the musicians are like.
I think
that's why we do
it. All humans. Yeah.
I think all humans, but musicians particularly have all got a story to tell, and they all have their demons, and that's part of why you create to try and absolve those demons. It's part of the process, I think, and I don't think you'd get a good song written if you were a saint. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Right, should we give another one of your songs a listen?
Yes. This next song it's one of those quite weird ones, actually. It's called The Last Dictator. And this was a song that was inspired after watching a news interview between Jeremy Bowen and Colonel Gaddafi quite a few years ago now, so it must be 10, 15 years ago. And obviously Colonel Gaddafi was still alive at that point. But he was talking to Colonel Gaddafi about, basically he was in a situation where he had nowhere to go. He was either going to die fighting for his cause, or he had this sort of olive branch that people were saying, well, this is your last chance. If you let us arrest you or whatever, and then you might survive. And I thought he obviously chose to fight to the death, and it just struck a chord with me that a lot of these dictators out there and people in power just are so blinkered that they can't see their opportunities, and I don't know, listen to the song. Listen, that's probably the best thing.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's really interesting. When we were playing it earlier, I didn't necessarily pick up on that story, so it would definitely be interesting seeing it in that light. Yeah. So let's give it a listen.
Okay, this song is called The Last Dictator. Well, promise me now that you'll listen to what I might say. Heed the words that you heard, you can't always have it your way. If there's something that you just cannot get, let me know. Oh, I may not be a farmer, but I got some seeds to sow. You fight a good fight with your fist, but I'm afraid that your argument's missed its mark. You're fumbling for candles when others can see in the dark. Can't you see the destruction and the panic that you cause? The disgrace on my face, it doesn't put you above the law. And the oath that you took by the book was your word. Just to think that you'll walk in and win, well, you know that that's absurd. And you cannot demand my respect, 'cause your actions will always reflect your heart. You're fumbling for candles when others can see in the dark. And you say you're going to go away and think it all over. Man, I've heard that all before. And you say you're going to fight the fight and win the battles, but you'll never win the war. Say your goodbyes and farewell, take your leave while you can. When you came in like a lion, you can leave like a man. And think about history before it decides on your fate. Take a stand, put your hand in my hand before it's too late. And don't tell me that you don't understand. You can start it by ripping your plans apart. You're fumbling for candles when others can see. You're fumbling for candles, but others can see. You're fumbling for candles, others can see what you've done to your family, your friends, and the free. Well, you're fumbling for candles, others can see in the dark. They can see in the dark. They can see in the dark. They can see in the dark.
I had Sam Fraser on here recently, and he
Yes.
mentioned a lot about some of the different events that you put on. Could you just talk a little bit about that and
Yeah.
how that came about?
The main regular event I run is a thing called Battle Lines, and it's a songwriting competition whereby each month we get 4 singer-songwriters to come in. The previous month we've given them a line. It can be anything that they have to include within their song, and they have to write a new song. Mm-hmm. Come back on the night, they play a little 3-song warm-up set each, and then they all play their brand new song, and the audience votes on which song they like the best. Yeah. And we have, I think at the moment, 5 rounds, then a couple of semi-finals, then a final. Mm-hmm. And that's been, Battle Lines itself is will be 10 years old next year.
Oh wow!
I took part in the first Battle Lines and the second one, and the third one actually, yeah. And on the third one, they were looking for someone else to take it on, so I took it on. When I say they, it was again, I mentioned Ian Keenan before. He runs SoSlam, which is an organisation that helps original artists find opportunities and helps them develop if they can. And he set that up originally just as a way to get original music into pubs, and it started in the Peterboat in Lee. And then we moved to Peggy Sue's in Lee. That's when I took over running it, and I've been running it. We're now in season 9 of Battle Lines, and the current Battle Lines final is in October the 10th. So if you're in Southend and you want a good night of original music, and there's food and beer available, we're at a place called 21 in Southend, which is sort of under the pier on the seafront. Excuse me. So that's October the 10th. And it's a really successful night, and people, all the songwriters that get involved really enjoy it because it forces them to write a song. So they all get a new song out of it. And apart from that, it's just a bit of fun. And it's a great way to get together and listen to original music and meet other songwriters. So I thoroughly enjoy running it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great because it's not your typical like talent competition that you might necessarily have where people just show up and they play cover songs or whatever. It really encourages people to write that original music. So I think that's sounds like a great thing. Yeah.
Covers are actively discouraged.
Yeah. So when they play the 3 songs before that, they're all original songs as well.
They can do whatever they like,
right?
But it's weird. People almost feel like they have to do original music, which is great. Which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So how long does it go over?
So we started season 9 in January.
Okay.
And we've been. We had a break last week. We had a one-off Battle Lines just for duos, because normally it's just solo artists. So we had one for duos last Thursday, which went really, really well. So well, in fact, we're doing another one in November just for duos. So if there's any duos listening to this want to get involved, then contact me and I'll give you all the info you need. And we've got the final in October, so it actually takes 9 months to get through a whole season.
Wow, yeah.
And then we're going to do a Christmas special, just Christmas songs in December, obviously. The whole thing takes a year.
Yeah, wow, that sounds great. So how many sort of artists do you generally have over the course of that period?
So this year I think we had 5 first rounds with 4 artists. That's 20 singer-songwriters this season. I think over the entire thing, we're up to about 85, 90 different songwriters have taken part. And I didn't even realise there were that many in the area, but there are. There's a lot of us about.
What about the pin drop sessions?
Well, the pin drop sessions was my idea. It was actually inspired by, I don't know if you've heard of a singer called Brandi Carlile.
Yeah.
She did a tour in the States that she called the Pin Drop Tour, and she was playing very small venues with absolutely no amplification, so just her and guitars, and everyone had to be absolutely silent to hear it. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I came up with this idea, or stole the idea, of pin drop sessions and started running them in Southend. We started at Caddy's Comedy Club in Southend High Street, which was a perfect venue because it could be completely shut off from the bar. And we got, again, 3 local singer-songwriters each night to come and play a half-hour set each, completely unplugged. And they're really beautiful nights. Again, the feedback I've had from the people who've played it say it's fantastic to play like that, because the sound is what you make. There's no feedback. There's no the sound engineer was rubbish. It's just sound as it was meant to be heard. And it's a fantastic thing. We've moved around a little bit. We were last at Chalkwell House in Chalkwell Park in Westcliff, but we've had to move out of there. So for the last few months, it's been on hold. I'm looking for a new venue to put it in at the moment permanently. But we have a very special one-off pin drop session at the Dixon Studio in Southend at the Palace Theatre. And that's on December the 15th. And I haven't actually announced the lineup for that anywhere yet, but I can announce it here if you wish. Yeah. We have got MG Bolter headlining that, and we've got Holly Hannigan, who is coming along. She's bringing a cellist and another guitarist with her, so that should be really good. And we've got Scarlett Rose Taylor, who's going to do a set as well. So that's going to be a fantastic evening. Look out on the interweb for all that kind of stuff. Or I think tickets are available from the box office in the theatre as well at the moment. Mm-hmm. So, but you'll be hearing more of that. If you know me on social media, then I won't let you not hear it. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Going back to your songwriting, do you ever do any music collaborations with other musicians and things like that, or is it generally just you a solo writer?
Yeah, I tend to be a solo writer. I find it very difficult collaborating with people. I'm not sure really why. I think it's the process. Either I just haven't found the right person to collaborate with. And to be honest, I don't try to collaborate that much. It's not something that overly interests me. Right. The nearest I've got is using someone else's words to write a song about, and I've done that once, and it did turn out all right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting using a different process. I think it very much depends on the person, really. I'd have to really get on with that person.
Yeah.
And I tend to write very much stream of thought. I find it difficult, I suppose, is what I'm saying. Or so, I think I would. I've not done it.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about your music again, in terms of songwriting, do you always write on the guitar, or do you ever play other instruments?
99% guitar, really. I do play a little bit of piano, a little bit of keyboards. Yeah. I can get by, but I'm by no way a pianist. I did. I mentioned before my bassist has got a band he works in, but he also writes his own sort of solo stuff, and he put a band together, and we played at Chinnery's earlier in the year, and he'd asked me to play keyboards for his band, which is something I'd never done before. But we had a few rehearsals, and it was quite basic, just chord stuff, and that was really fun, and I enjoyed that, and that sort of inspired me to. Actually, I recently bought a digital piano with weighted keys, which is what I really wanted. Yeah. So I've just started trying to get back into that. I think I've only ever written one, maybe two songs on keyboards, but I'd like to explore that more.
Yeah, because you get a completely different sound, a completely different vibe to the song. So it's always good to start from different starting points, I think.
Anything that sparks something new and original, gets the imagination going, or takes a song in a different direction is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I know this is quite a big thing in Southend, is busking. Is that something that you've ever experienced and done anything with?
Yeah, I've done a bit of busking. Southend High Street it's not good for much, but it's all right for busking.
Yeah.
And there's normally someone under the bridge. If you know the high street, the railway goes across sort of halfway down. Yeah. And there's always someone busking under the bridge. And I think the unwritten rule of thumb is, if there's a few buskers around, you do an hour under the bridge, then you let someone else move on. And, that's a sort of unwritten rule. Some people do it, some people just stay there for hours. But I've done it a few times. I'm not big on busking, but it's always enjoyable, and it's good. It's nice to play to a moving audience because you haven't got any of the anxiety of having someone just watch you and
Yeah.
for ages and ages. People generally walking by, and occasionally people will stop. But if people stop while you're busking, it's because they like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
good sign. And if people don't like it, they just walk on by.
Yeah.
My biggest piece of advice to buskers at the moment would be get a card reader. People don't have much cash anymore.
No, they don't. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you ever play at the Railway in Southend?
Yeah, I played at the Railway loads of times, upstairs and downstairs. I mean, that was a superb venue. It was like the central hub, music-wise, for Southend. And for a good, I don't know, probably a 10-year period when Dave and Fee were running it. It had a good vibe. Everyone in there was into the music and very much into original music. I think they rarely had covers bands in there. It was almost all original music.
Yeah.
And you could go in there and just play. You could almost go in there, just pick up a guitar or sit at the piano and have a go. It was good.
Yeah.
Great vibe.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. It's a shame it's not about anymore. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hope. I'm only one lottery ticket away from opening it up. So.
Yeah. Is there any talk of them opening it back up, though?
No, I mean it's it's being advertised at the moment for someone to take it on as just a general pub.
Yeah.
But they're asking so much investment into it just to get the doors open again.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to see it open again as a music venue, but realistically, I can't see it happening unless someone happens to walk into a whole bunch of money.
Yeah. It was a really interesting place,
Yeah.
So many great musicians and
Yeah.
so many people feel exactly the same. I mean, they would love it if it was to open back up. And,
Yeah, we need these hubs for the local creative community, and at the moment there's a few places dotted around. 21 is doing a lot of original music now and supporting a lot of music ventures. You've got Craftwork Beers and up until recently the Ironworks was a great place to do some music, but they've got their own problems again at the moment. I think they're looking for a new venue. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a new old style pub venue going again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's about time we listen to your last song, if that's okay.
Yeah, my last song is a song called The Man, not to be confused with Taylor Swift's song called The Man.
I'm sure yours is much more popular.
Yeah, I think I wrote mine first, actually. I should have a word. Now, this was written, I don't often get very political, but this was quite a political song in the sense that it was written in frustration just after Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. And it's really about ignorance, I suppose, and probably specifically ignorant men, the sort of misogynist, racist, or the kind of people who don't really think about or haven't got the intelligence to actually assess the situation and see what's going on and be morally correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's a good song to do that I like to do with the band because it's got a really good vibe to it when we do it with the band, but it also works really well as a solo song. So I was quite happy when I wrote this one. I thought it was quite a good one. So.
Yeah, I think it's one with a really clear story as well. Like it's like as I said before about your previous one, I didn't actually pick up on the story right away. I think with that one it's quite clear.
Yeah, it's fairly obvious what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Let's give it a listen.
Okay.
Here is a man who thinks that money makes him happy. Here is a man who might be right, but does he value all the things you take for granted before he goes to bed each night? He disregards the starving hundreds. He doesn't understand their plight. He doesn't think a man of colour should ever share his human rights. Here is a man with too much faith in what he reads. Here is a man who should take note, to pay attention to alternative opinions before deciding how to vote. And if you're questioning his motives, oh, he'll think you're questioning his might. He says he's got the right agenda because he knows his wrongs from right. And here is a man who's always shouting. Here is a man who likes to laugh. Here is a man you should be wary of because he walks another path. And if you see him in the shadows, oh, be careful not to catch his eye. For your emotional awareness, well, it will simply pass him by. And if you ask me of the future, well, I wish I had the nerve to lie. The ones like us, well, they will always be neglected. Oh no, no matter how they try. Oh no, no matter how they try. And it's coming soon enough. If you look deep inside, there's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can hide. And if you take a stand, well, they'll beat it out of you, 'cause they don't give a damn. They don't care about you. No, they don't care about you. And if you're feeling disillusioned, oh, and you've given up the fight, you better find the darkest corner you can hide in. Try and make it through the night. And try and make it through the night.
Okay, so when did you write that one then?
That was whenever Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, so that must have been 5 years ago.
Right, okay.
If that, I don't know. I thought it was more recent than that, actually, but it can't be, can it? Because we've been through about 10 Prime Ministers since then.
Yeah. It's got to be at least 5 years.
Yeah.
In terms of your gigs, have you got anything coming up that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I've got a really exciting gig that I'm really looking forward to. It's an out-of-town gig, which is always good, and that's down in Brighton at a place called the Folklore Rooms in Brighton, which I have played once before. We took one of the pin drop sessions down there. I think that was just before COVID, so about 2019. And it's a lovely little venue in the middle of Brighton, right at the top of a pub, and it's a lovely little room they've set out just for intimate sort of small gigs. And I'm playing on a bill with two other songwriters that I've never heard of, which is great. And they're both Brighton locals, and I'm the out of town person coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to play that. And like I said before, it's always good to play into people that haven't heard of you or haven't seen you before, because you can really gauge real feedback then, and sort of, hopefully it'll be good feedback, but we'll see. And it's always a good excuse for a weekend in Brighton, which is fantastic. So
Yeah. That sounds good. So in terms of venues generally, like, do you have any venues that you've performed at that specifically stick out?
Yeah, I mean, the last venue I played with the band, which was at the Dixon Studio in Westcliff, that was, I'd say, one of the best gigs we've played with the band. It's a really lovely little, again, quite an intimate for amplified gig. And it went down really well, and we all enjoyed playing it, and we got really good feedback from that. The other place, obviously, Chinnery's in Southend, we've played, I think, 3 times now. As a band on there, they do local music nights, I think every month or so, which is a really good thing they do, and it gives you a chance to play on a proper, proper venue stage with proper sound guys. It's a good experience. And so I always thoroughly enjoy that. But I think any venues like theatres or like Chinnery's or places that are specifically set up for gigs is always a good gig. If you're just playing a pub gig, sometimes you never really know how it's going to, unless you've played there before, you don't know what the audience is going to be like, whether they're receptive, whether they're not, what the equipment's like, what the sound guy's like. It can be a bit of a minefield. So
absolutely.
The ones I really like playing, and I look forward to playing as much as I can, sort of Chinnery's and theatre gigs, and like I said, out of town gigs are always good. Festival gigs.
It's the Leigh Folk Festival. But that was not on this year, was it?
No, they're much like
a year out, was it?
Much like Glastonbury used to do. They're having a fallow year.
Okay.
The plan is to come back next year.
Are you hoping to do that one?
I don't. Hopefully, I mean, I help them out at the folk festival, so I usually run an open mic competition in Leigh Church for the folk festival. On the Saturday, and last year I was stage managing one of the stages as well, which just happened to have my band on. I don't know how that happened, and but no, I'd love to play again. But I mean, I have played the folk festival a lot, and there does come a point where you have to say, well, this might look a bit suspicious if I play every year, and now I'm sort of helping out as well. But no, I'd love to do that, and hopefully it will come back and come back stronger. I think it needs to come back, because I think if they have 2 years out, it may never come back.
It's always the worry.
I think they're doing a lot of fundraisers at the moment. I'm doing sound for a fundraiser down at 21 next Saturday. If you're around for that, it should be a good night. But the folk festival's been running for, I should know, but probably nearly 30 years, I think.
It's been a long time.
And it's an institution that I think needs to stay in Southend.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I actually like it where it is, where it's been the last few years. I know a lot of people said that they preferred it down in the town there, but I kind of like it where it is. I
think it's got a different vibe. I think the last folk festival there was, for me, was one of the best ones there's ever been. It had a really good community vibe.
Was that last year?
In the Library Gardens.
It was good,
Had a really good vibe. The weather was wonderful, which always helps. And I think, although having it down in the old town is good, the logistics are huge, trying to get the road closed and everything else that goes on. And I think a lot of the venues it tended to get more crowded, and not everyone was there for the festival, and it had a good vibe, just a different vibe. I think in the Library Gardens, it is what it is. It's a proper community festival where everyone's welcome and everyone can sit and enjoy the music, which they did. And it was a great time last year.
Brilliant. If I just change direction here slightly, to what extent would you say that social media plays a part in your music and getting your music out there?
Hugely. Even though I'm quite rubbish at it. I'm sort of too old for social media, really. But I try my best, and I'm getting better. You know, I haven't got a TikTok yet, but no. But as far as networking is concerned, and getting gigs, and if you're, from my point of view, putting on gigs, I couldn't do any of it without social networking. Instagram and Facebook is where I still, my realm of trying to promote music. Facebook's a bit, you never really know who's seeing your posts on Facebook. Yeah. I think Instagram is becoming more useful as time goes by, and learning to use social media is becoming a lot more important for me. You need to keep at it. It's not something you can just say, "Oh, I've put a post up this month and that'll do." You've got to get content going. You've got to feed these goldfish people who attention span is only 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the problem with something like this, a podcast that goes on for an hour.
Yeah.
What are the odds of someone watching till the end? That's why I've got to cut little clips out of them, for people to watch. But
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, I've enjoyed watching the podcast you've done so far. And I find a lot of the social media a bit too bitty, really. You don't really get any depth to any of it.
No.
But it seems you have to keep putting this stuff out just so that you can reach the people you need to reach.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the algorithms and things sort of cut you off.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is fair. It'd be nice if it was just open so that everyone saw everything.
Yeah, I think when it all first started out, I think it was more like that.
It was definitely, yeah.
And it has changed over the years.
90% of my stream's adverts now for things I don't want to see, or things I've had a conversation with someone about, scarily.
So in terms of the best place for people to find your music, would you say that's Facebook and Instagram then, or is there other places where they can find it?
Well, I have, all over the social media, you can find me at Chris Robson Music covers Facebook, Instagram. I do have a website where I put most of my gig listings on there as a permanent place for them. And that's just chrisrobsonmusic.co.uk. And Spotify is where my music lives. I've got quite a bit of, 7 or 8 EPs out on Spotify, and quite a few singles. Recently I've just been releasing singles rather than doing EPs, because I think going back to the attention span, if you release an EP, it just gets lost. Yeah. Whereas if you release a single every month, people have something to focus on. So that's what I'm tending to do more now than albums or EPs. But yeah, that's where it all is.
Fantastic. Sounds great.
There may be a TikTok soon. Who knows?
I've been thinking about that with this. But I don't know, not yet.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I absolutely loved it. It's a brilliant thing you're doing.
Yeah,
well
it's been
done.
Great. And as I say, if you know any other artists from the local area, let me know and I'll get them on.
I will be sending you a long list.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you.
So that was Chris Robson. If you're a musician or a band from the southeast of England and would like to be on the podcast, then just email me at the address below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.